Hey there guys, it's Metro, and we are back with episode 2 of a playlist of videos I'm trying to make for you guys to help you understand what's difficult about pugging keys, especially with Season 2 of mine, especially from the point of view of a blood DK, and especially considering the route I'm using. So this is going to be hand in hand with the route video I made a while back that's bigplay.1/route. It's in the description as well. Hopefully somewhere you could find it very easily. But we're going to be talking about Sanguine depths today. This is a dungeon that I think has gotten substantially easier. It feels like almost every day that goes by, the perception on this dungeon switches. And it's actually, as the tank, this is a very challenging dungeon, a dungeon that you need to make the right plays in, because it's not just about making the aggressive play. This dungeon, I feel like its timer has been consistently extremely lenient, but a wipe in here is brutal. And it's a lot of it is because of where you res. A lot of it is because how many times you'd wipe to something that you commit major CDs to. So I'm going to talk you through everything you need to know about this dungeon, and hopefully you will come out on the better end and having a healthier respect for a key where you actually just have to pull conservatively, make conservative plays along the way. Don't do anything too aggressive. You don't need to go out of your way to split the atom here. You just need to be in a straight line, moving forward at all times, and you will upgrade this key. I swear, like, I don't know what level that would not be true at, because I've done it in some difficult scenarios. So anyway, this is a bolstering week. But I think this is a really good key because we actually have a lot of deaths and we still upgrade this key. So first pull is always big here. And it's same thing for every dungeon. You always want to get value out of your first set of CDs because everybody has them up. Every single CD is up when you start the dungeon. So you always want to get some good value. So that's a words to live by. Don't ever pull small unless you absolutely have to out of the first pack. And you have this little jar here. So if you're a Venthyr, you can click on it. Now, it depends on what class you're playing as a tank. If you're Venthyr, I've never done it myself, but I've been told it's actually quite complicated to click it, especially because if you're a tank that doesn't establish a lot of threat really quickly, you're probably going to lose threat, and the mobs are going to run all around. So yeah, unfortunate. Definitely better. A lot of these types of skips are definitely better if the tank doesn't do them. But yeah, this is a pretty good one. It gives you a buff and stacks up. I think it's 10% damage buff. I'm never actually 100% sure. I think it's 10% damage buff. It's a big buff, okay? And it's definitely something worth getting. But when the mob dies near the red circle, so you have a relatively big range, but you just kind of want to take it as close to him as possible. And this is just a big AoE fest. There's a mob doing a volatile trap. Usually, if somebody gets hit by this trap, they're going to take a huge chunk of damage. But when you have all CDs up at the start of a dungeon like this, there's kind of just no mechanics. Just kind of burn it down. And then, these mechanics that are happening, animate weapon, this is something you can stun to prevent them from spawning those things. Those things do a lot of tank damage to you. And sometimes when they spawn, you don't get threat on them as a tank and they run around and do a lot of damage to someone else. So, you should be aware of those mechanics, but realistically, that first pack, you're not going to have to deal with anything. Those mechanics do exist later in the dungeon, though, as well. Now, this is a big pull here. I'm doing something very aggressive, and I probably wouldn't recommend this to anyone else. What I'm doing here is pulling the Mistdancer. Now, actually, before we even say anything about this, there's another way that a lot of people handle this. Probably not on bolstering weeks, but a lot of people try to pull the entire hallway back to that, okay? And they might try to do that all in one pull. I've never done that before, and I can't even imagine doing that as a blood DK. The threat would probably be astronomically bad. I'd have mobs running all over the place. But if you have the ability to do it, I believe Faxi and others told me that like a Guardian Druid might be able to do it very easily. They'll stealth to the end and then generate threat on the way back. And I was like, okay, that's an interesting idea. But if not, try to be creative with what you pull here, because this opening hallway is like you have this massive damage buff from the jar, and everything's going very well. Make good use of it. You only have it for 2 minutes, so definitely try to make good use of it. But this mob here, this Mistdancer, is one of the most interesting mobs that I've ever tanked. Like, legitimately, I don't know of a mob that is more interesting from a tank point of view. So let's talk about this mob. And I also pulled his Brute, which is another relatively interesting mob. So the Mistdancer is going to do Echoing Thrust, as you see. It's going to do a very thin frontal, kind of like shoot out a line from its sword, I guess, really. And it's always going to be in that same location. So it's going to actually echo like it sounds. And every time it does the mechanic again, it's going to do that same location as well. So eventually the whole room would be echoes if you fought it for 15 minutes, something like that, okay? So as the tank, you need to face them the same direction every time. You need to outthink this mechanic one way or the other, however you want to handle it. The way I like to do it is try to face them direct same angle every time, so nobody ever has to worry about where they need to stand. But what I'm doing right now is going to make that way, way harder. As you see, the Hunt Masters are also throwing down the volatile traps. So now we actually have to care about this mechanic. What it's going to do is it's going to put a relatively big red circle on the ground. If anybody comes in contact with that, they're going to take a lot of, I'm pretty sure, shadow damage. Okay, so I am 90% sure because I always AMS it. But it hits hard, and I think you're going to see me get hit by it right now. But this brute is another mob altogether. So this is like a small mob, but it's big. It's dangerous. He does a really bad tank smash. Now they did nerf it in season 2, but it's a large hit. Okay, so anyway, there's the volatile traps. So let's see. So you see, it throws the traps down. It's also quacking weak, which is definitely not. Yeah, we're putting a lot of pressure on this pack here. This could easily be the key right here. So. You see, it's going to do it again. Echoing thrust. One is going to be where it originally was. The new one is going to be where he's facing now. So always try to keep him facing. Like, definitely what you don't want is one facing 90 degrees and one facing 180 degrees. That's GG. Like, now there's nowhere to stand in the whole room, and you're going to have to leave that area. Like, there's nothing else that you can do other than leave that area. So anyway, 2 in that direction. Very good. Now that trap is down. I would try to clear it typically, but I think I'm a little panicked right now. Now this Umbral Crash is a magic damage thing. He's going to jump over here and he's going to hit everybody for a small amount of damage. Not really that big of a deal, but don't get hit by that. I presume that it's probably bad. Maybe you get knocked back. I'm not actually sure, but yeah, it doesn't do that. Okay, so watch. I'm going to run into the trap. Got AMS up. Let's see. Okay. What is happening there? I mean, how does that actually occur? I don't even know. Let's try to see if so I have 45k absorb at 57% health, 65k health. Walk into the trap. How do we do this again? E, yeah. Let's see if we can figure it out. I just don't see how that does that much damage. But sure. One more time. Trap is gonna do with AMS up. Yeah, okay. It does a lot. It does a lot of damage. Not great at math on the fly there, but that is a lot of damage. So just keep that in mind. I mean, obviously you can soak it, but it's not really something that anybody else should walk into. The reason I'm soaking is because I worry that somebody else is going to walk into it, right? So a lot of stuff going on in these early packs, but yeah, I mean, a lot of times you're just not going to be able to avoid the trap, like right there. I didn't even mean to get hit by that one, but so anyway, we're moving because the mob is doing, like, the traps are piling up and the mob is doing jumping and everything like that. So just, again, I'm trying to keep the thrusts off to the left every time I fight this mob. Now, the bright side is if you do my route, this is the only time you're ever going to fight this mob. And that's kind of a shame. I really like this mob type. It's a very, very interesting mob. Like I said, I think this is legitimately the most interesting. Comment below. What would you think the most interesting mob type you've ever tanked was in not in a non-boss, like in a 5-man? I don't know if there's been a more interesting mob type in Trash. But as you see, all of them are pointed the same way down the left side there. So everybody could stand on the right side. Easy as pie, as they say. I mean, pie is not very easy. I don't know why people say that's hard to make, but regardless, that's the case. Okay, so now we've done things a little different. Typically, and in the route that I recommend, I would not grab that dude. I would grab the brute with one of these ticks, okay? And then this would be a 2-pull. By now, the buff's off, so we're just killing these. But, you can get a little more aggressive here if you want. We have Incinerator up here. We're going to grab him now, and I'm going to grab him with that tick that we didn't pull yet, so... Now this room is entirely skippable if somehow you're seeing this for the first time. You don't actually have to pull any of this. Just make sure you don't do any damage to anything but him, and he will run out completely untethered. And then you don't have to pull it to skip it either, which we'll talk about. But yeah, now this is actually harder than it looks. So you got to obviously make sure you're interrupting here. Hopefully everybody knows how to do this this mob type. But yeah, this is actually really bad because that's not good. Like the second he comes out of the room, he turns on that fire. That's pretty dangerous. Like, yeah, people are definitely going to get hit by that. I'm surprised more people didn't get hit, to be honest. Now, this is a bad pack to be doing because this mob needs constant tending. All right, if you've not seen these ticks before, they're going to do this engorge cast, and basically they're going to get a stack. Long story short, when they die, however many stacks they have, that's how much damage they do to the entire group. And if they have like more than like 10 stacks, it does a lot of damage on Fortified. So we don't do a very good job of this because everybody's freaking out about the incinerator. You need to make sure we get that interrupt, so people are very focused on that. Now I'm going to try to grip it. We got a stun there, so that's pretty good. But obviously, it's going to get some stacks because there's just too much going on. The grip doesn't actually seem to stop it either, it seems. But anyway, that's fine. Now quacking here doesn't help, right? Okay, Skull. Oh, no, fire right behind us. Oh, boy, this is getting tight. So definitely, I mean, you can't really avoid this. Like, one way or the other, you're fighting this dude in this hallway. But yeah, it's definitely a little complicated. Okay, let's blink away. Good play there. I felt like I was going to get hit if I didn't blink there. And then with Quack, oh no, man, what a mess this is. But not bad if you navigate it well. Most of fixed weeks, it's probably not that bad. Maybe Sanguine is also bad. This hallway is definitely a very tight place to fight this mob. But other times it's Varuth, and I think he's probably just as bad. I guess it's oh yeah, see how much damage we just took from that, by the way? Look at that. That's ridiculous. Let's one more time. So the mob is about to die. Let's see it. To get touch of death. Now he just dies gradually. 11 stacks. Here we go. And so just pay attention here. Everybody's at 90 and boom, 30. So this dude took 60% of his health and damage from that tick exploding. That's yeah, that's a lot. That's much damage. So okay, we get the buff. Moving on. Crushing Bulwark. Sounds good. Let's do it. Okay, so this is super easy. We don't have any concerns here. This is not Invispot. This is not Shroud. You literally just walk by it. Now, something to keep in mind. This dude pats from all the way over here to all the way over here, okay? He will pat around this whole room. So if he's over here, you just wait. That's all there is to it. Do not Invispot here. It's just not worth it. I mean, unless you absolutely don't plan on using DPS potions anytime. There's just no reason to Invispot. You just wait 5 or 6 seconds and he will pat by. Or you could Shroud, whatever. Rogue, you can also distract it when he's over here to make it easier. Also, pro strategy here. What I'm doing here is getting stuck on purpose because I'm extremely skilled. I am stuck on a rock that is just kind of rounded, doesn't actually have any sharp edges, and I'm just stuck here. I mean, that's really good. Got to jump to get over that. Just kidding. So, okay, so here we go. Now we have a big pack of ticks. 3 of these mobs. Now there's 2 famished ticks. Sometimes these things don't aggro forever. They were bugged. Like one of them would get stuck in the floor and then it would aggro on the boss. I think they finally got that figured out after 8 months. But yeah, just in case, make sure you have all 5 here because it will slightly upset the count later on. But we just have the same mobs that we were just fighting. Really good idea here to chain lightning before the tank gets threat and die. This is a great play from the shaman, and I've seen it a lot recently. I'm really happy to see that. So anyway, same deal. Just make sure you also blow your 30-minute res reduction or res CD, and then you'll be alive again. Perfect. Okay, so we want to interrupt as much as we can here. Great time for like prop pally, bear, anything with AoE interrupts. Try to interrupt multiple things at once. But yeah, again, every time these casts go off, this is stacks that they're gaining, and you just want them all to not have above 10. I feel like, so the way you wipe to this, it's very rare, but the way you wipe to this, if nobody interrupts any of them and they all die at the same time, you just get one shot. Like legitimately, no matter how, how prepared you are, you will die. So either don't kill them all at the same time, or just try to actually interrupt. But you see, it doesn't really do that much damage when you interrupt. So, okay, now this is another dangerous pack. We got the Brute and even more ticks. There's actually only the 2 gluttonous ticks. The rest are just the fodder. So it's not, it looks like a big pack, and people are going to probably pat on it. This is a pack that on Fortified actually used to be really dangerous. And it kind of upset Pride routes. But yeah, I just don't really worry about this anymore. They nerfed the Brute a lot. So just, make sure you're using for this mob, this Brute. He's going to do a slam. There you go. So just use a defensive if you have to, but otherwise just be ready for a death strike and you're all set. Just make sure you do as much interrupting. Really, unfortunately, I hate to say this, but as the tank, yeah, you're probably going to be the one doing a bulk of the interrupting here because everybody else is like, 17 mobs, I must do damage. Oh, the boss is coming up? Oh, I don't need CDs for that. It's an easy boss, bro. Boss half dead, isn't it? Okay, so yeah, just make sure you don't wipe to I've had this happen more than I care to admit. I actually die myself because I'm low from the Brute, and then the ticks explode and it finishes me. Not a good idea. So just, yeah, try it. I mean, that's 9 stacks. These are going to both die at the same time, I bet. Yeah, actually, I remember this. They're both going to die at the same time. Okay, that's low. And then Quack, we could easily have a death there. Luckily, people spread out. So, I'm going to just do a little courtesy 5-second countdown, give her a chance to get caught up here. So let's move on. This is probably one of the most complicated bosses in the game, and I'm going to tell you why. He does a massive amount of damage. This mechanic is a sleeper. I've actually seen tanks get destroyed by this mechanic, myself included, okay? Very dangerous mechanic. Probably one of the hardest hitting tank mechanics in the game, and I do think they nerfed it recently, but it's still very dangerous. Unfortified, not really. The big problem, though, is it's a knockback, okay? So my issue was that it would knock me out of range. Now, I've had mechanics like this before. I think like Arcway, Freehold had these types of things where you get knocked back during a dangerous mechanic. And what you're trying to do is death strike the second it happens. If you're death striking in the air, you will still hit him, okay? So if you're worried about surviving this with a death strike, you do it the second it happens. Otherwise, you're going to be out of range and you might die. This happens to me all the time. I get knocked back. I don't get the death strike off. He gets to me before I get to him, and that's a death, okay? So instead, what I started doing was using my defensive CDs, like using my healing before the mechanic. Now, obviously, that works really well because I have Blood Shield as well. I was talking to Jix about this, and he's like, it's not going to work for me because all these things. I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. You don't have a Blood Shield. But still, if you're at full health, you shouldn't die to this mechanic, right? I don't think you actually need a defensive CD most times. You just be full health. And it's not as easy as it sounds because this is an incredibly difficult healing fight. And I show you why. It's not necessarily the mechanics. It's the veracity of the mechanics. It's how often they happen and how frequently they're dangerous. So there you see, even on Fortified, I get hit for almost 40% of my health. I have 100k health, guys. Let that sink in. Fortified 18, I got hit for almost 40,000 health, okay? That would have killed the DPS, right? I mean, think about that. It's a one-shot on a DPS on Fortified. So that's a dangerous mechanic. Now that, do not let that cast go off more than he always gets 5 stacks as long as he casts a spell, which he's going to. But it's very similar to another mechanic like in Arcway, where the longer he casts it, the more power he gains. So even if it's 2 or 3 seconds that you miss, he is very strong. Okay, so do not let that cast go off. I don't know if you can purge that or anything. I never see anybody remove it, but it looks like something that might be removable. Okay, anyway, here's the main mechanic. Okay, Juggernaut Rush. This is going to charge to a person, and it needs to be split. You need everybody to share the damage, otherwise the one person is going to die. But there's a lot of creative ways you can handle this. Now, in the beginning of the season, and I haven't seen anyone do this since, so maybe they fixed it. In the beginning of the season, you could line of sight it. There's these coffins or whatever, and there's these kind of holes in the wall there. You could actually tank him in the middle and then run to the other thing, and he will not be able to charge through the wall. I have not seen anyone do that, and I tried to do it in the middle of the season, and people were like freaking out. They're like, tank, move him, move him. I'm like, okay, sure. So I guess that just doesn't work anymore, or people just don't even try to do that anymore. Maybe it's worth exploring. Let me know if you try it. I have not done it in a long time, though. So anyway, everybody else is just going to stand in here. Now, there's other ways to do it. If you have an immunity, you do alone. You solo it. So I'm not sure if Rogue can solo it. Obviously, probably Cheat Death would be good, but Paladin, Mage, Hunter, and you could also bop the person. If you're a Paladin, you could put bop on a person and they will survive it alone. Obviously, you better communicate that. But yeah, past that, make sure all 5 people are in it. Sometimes the healer won't get in it, and that's probably fine because they don't want to get knocked back. They want to heal instead. But just keep that in mind. Not a bad place to use a defensive. But again, it's the veracity of the mechanics, because now we're right back to the other stuff. We're going to take the tank mechanic first, Vicious Headbutt, and then he's also going to do a parry that. Very good. Then he's going to do this mechanic, which is like kind of the... Everybody thinks this is like the hard mechanic and they freak out about it. To me, this is the easy mechanic because you know exactly when the damage is coming. It's the Juggernaut charge thing. That's the hard mechanic because you're waiting and waiting and waiting, and it comes, and then other mechanics come right back to back. So that's the big issue. So what it's going to do is he's going to do a severing smash. He's going to kind of pound the earth, okay? And then out of that earth is going to spawn a ball. And that ball, if you touch it, it does a bunch of magic damage to everyone. So there's a couple of prevailing ways to deal with this. One is just kind of pop them all quickly and heal through it, which is kind of what happens. Some people like to go really, really, really far away. I think this is a vestigial structure from when you could reliably not have the mechanic. If you got so far away from the boss, you would actually not get the mechanic. Now, I don't know if you still can or can't do that because the people are so far away that I can't see them. But I don't really think it's that serious. Like, honestly, it's really not. Just actually make sure they're staggered. and you should be good. If you can't heal through that, then you really can't do the rest of the bosses in here. Like this dungeon is extremely healing intense. Might be one of the biggest challenges I've ever seen from a start to finish dungeon for a paladin healer especially, but any healer is going to struggle with this dungeon. So I honestly, I can't remember what happens if he gets the orbs, but I know it's bad. I think it heals him. There's a similar mechanic in Spires, and I don't remember which is which. But anyway, it's bad. Let's put it that way. So don't let him get the orb. So that's why you want to spread out. Like, if you're completely non-worried about this fight, you still need to run, because otherwise he's going to get the orbs. Like, if you just stand right under the boss and he gets them, I think he heals. I don't remember. But regardless, don't let that happen. That's not something you should know about, because it should never happen. So here's a somewhat common mistake. So 2 people ran out at the same place, and now there's 2 orbs that are unavoidable. You will hit both of them when you hit them, right? So like this plus the vicious headbutt, like look, I'm gonna get knocked into them. See? Well, I would if I didn't parry it. But yeah, anyway, I don't know, man. It's like it's kind of a complicated fight because there's so many position-based mechanics and they happen so fast, like so often. Like look, we're still low from the previous one, and now everybody has to split that mechanic. It's unfortified, guys. If this was tyrannical, we'd be done here. It'd be over. It would have been a wipe already. We would have had multiple deaths. So take it serious. This is always lust. You should always, definitely pot here. Definitely commit everything you have to this boss. Don't waste it on the trash. It's not dangerous. And this is what I'm talking about with this dungeon. It's about cost analysis. You don't need to do anything other than not wipe. I swear. I promise you. Find me footage of a group that has no major mistakes in this dungeon and fails to upgrade it. I cannot believe it exists. Because the amount of times I've done this dungeon clean and we've been close to 2 chesting or insanely... Dude, a couple weeks ago, I did this dungeon. We wiped twice to the invis pot. I forgot to... I potted on the boss, and then we wiped twice to it because I forgot that if I died with the shield, I have to go get the shield. So I had to die twice and actually wipe the group. We upgraded the key. What? I mean, that's not going to happen in most dungeons, okay? So anyway, let's move on. So this pack here, this is all the route. A lot of people go and pull these. I've never done it. Maybe you want to try it. I'll tell you why I'm not doing that in the future, but like in the near future. But right now, all we're focusing on is getting this pack. This is actually a very, very, very dangerous pack. And with some affixes, it's extremely dangerous. Inspiring, probably bolstering, maybe sanguine. Very, very dangerous pack, okay? Tons of casters. These casters, these acolytes are little fodder mobs, but they do a lot of damage with that dark bolt. And if they all target the same person, they're going to die. So you need to be ready to do some kind of interrupts here. It's obviously why Balance Druid is so good. Ellie Shaman is so good. This is a great pack for an Ellie Shaman. We got stuns, we got Earthquake. You should have a lot of interrupts coming out here. You're never going to interrupt every single one of these mobs. But the main mobs, the elites, are also going to do Rack Soul, which is way more dangerous, and you should focus on interrupting those. They're also going to do a curse, okay? Now, that curse, I believe, only goes on the healer. I'm not exactly sure how the targeting element of it works, but if it gets off, it silences the healer. Now, it's a curse, so it can just be dispelled. Obviously, a lot of people are running with mages, but they're a curse of suppression. Seemingly, it's trying to put it on the shaman. One of them is trying to go on the shaman. I don't really understand. But I don't know how it works, but I always see it. Like, I've seen the healer have 3 of them. So I think it only ever targets the healer. Just make sure you interrupt that, or you can just purge it. Okay, so here we go. Now, this is an aggressive play. If you don't feel comfortable doing that, you don't have to do this. It's not a big deal. And it's probably going to hurt us more than it should. I'm making a mistake here, honestly. Like, the group indicates that I make a mistake here. So instead, what you can do is you can run over here, aggro this, and then pull it back. You do not want to, if you don't want to fight this guy, you do not want to fight the Chamber Sentinel in this hallway. That's just ridiculous. You're definitely going to aggro this because he does a bunch of ground-based mechanic. So if you don't want to do that, pull him back into that previous room and you go. So here we go. We're fighting Oros Coldheart. Probably the easier of the combos here. This could also be Sogadon. And it's by the way, Sogadon, he's my favorite one. So anybody who's a Sogadon hater, like just get out, man. Just click dislike and move on. But anyway, no. Okay, so Frostlands. The reason that this is difficult is because there's 2 ground-based mechanics that you have to dodge at once. Right now, there's only one. Thanks for stopping by. So it's still dangerous, obviously, but I mean, it's really just move. But here's the mechanic, right? So now we also the Stone Skin cast. This gargoyle dude, he casts Stone Skin. You actually could purge it. Mages will be like, don't kick it, I'll spell steal it, and then they become stronger or something. I don't really care about that, but yeah, one way or the other, don't let the mob get Stone Skin for any length of time. But so we got Quack, we got Frost, we got Frontals, we got Craggy, Fracture. Make sure you're not standing in that. If you're standing in that, you're gonna die. Oh, not yet. Somebody dies to that too. Pretty dangerous. And then obviously dodge the frontal. I mean, again, if at this point, if you don't know how to do Oros Cold Heart, you're probably one of these players in this group. But yeah, we have like 6 deaths to this mob type, these 2 mobs. Yeah, pretty bad here. So yeah, try to kick the Stone Skin, try not to get quacked. I don't know. Obviously, we're overcomplicating this pack by pulling it together, but I guess the big issue is the quaking, to be honest. Like, really, we probably shouldn't have much issue. It's just people are freaking out because of the actual fix. But yeah, I mean, clearly a mistake here. I mean, this is definitely not helping us. It's not definitely not to our benefit. But honestly, like, you should not look at this as dangerous. This is just mechanic. I mean, this is easier than most raid fights, right? I mean, like, it's really not that difficult. Just move from things when they happen. That's it. But yeah, 1 or 2 deaths here, probably still worth it, as long as you don't have like a complete failure. But we got a lot. We add 5 deaths. We have 5 deaths to these 2 mobs, including the healer. So not a tight pack there, but whatever. I think it's definitely. Listen, if you can pull more mobs with the lieutenants, you should consider doing that, because they really don't do that much. They almost always have an affordability where you're just kind of auto attacking them and there's nothing happening, and you kind of really want to make good value out of that time. So I wouldn't say that this is needed, but certainly the case. And guess what? Big tip for you guys. I was just complaining about this during this recording, so we're giving you the biggest tip I can give you. Raise your hand if you have no idea that you could line of sight dangerous mechanics. I think a lot of people do not. I grew up, Mythic Plus obviously was huge in Legion, and the mechanics were so dangerous that if you didn't line of sight them, your character would be de-leveled. That's how hard you would get hit. So this mob here, Grand Overseer, not stunnable, does a Gloom Burst. You might want to interrupt that. There's also these oppressors from before, Rack Soul, same thing with the curses, dispel, interrupt, whatever. Overseer, he's going to cast a spell that you're going to want to not die to. And I'm going to tell you how not to die to it. Here it comes right now. Not yet. Here it is. Dread Bindings. Okay, so check this out. Dread Bindings. It's going to chain everybody to him, and it does a ton of damage constantly. Okay, so what you got to do is run so far away that the chains snap. I mean, they're old, they're fragile, they've been in the Sanguine depths, they're just going to break. But guess what? If you're not in range of him when it happens, it doesn't get applied. So if you're a ranged DPS, you can actually start so far away that he won't even do the mechanic to you. Or you could do what I'm about to do and line of sight the mechanic before the cast goes off. See up here? Cast has not gotten off yet. I am line of sighting the mob, and I don't have the mechanic. You see this? Everybody else has the mechanic. I don't have the mechanic. I don't understand why nobody ever does this. Maybe I'm the only tank that tries to do this. But yeah, this is a pretty damn good idea, don't you think? Now, it's also a magic application, so you can actually just AMS it as well. AMS it right before it comes out, and you won't get it. But otherwise, just keep trying to interrupt these mobs. These mobs are actually relatively dangerous. There's going to be 3 pulls of this exact same combo. Grand Overseer, 2 Oppressors. He's also doing this debuff. The longer you fight this pack, the less damage you do. I'm 90% sure that's what I've not even thought about this since like the alpha, because it's unavoidable. But again, line of sight one more time. But yeah, it's like 10 stacks of this. I guess the main thing is you just don't ever want to have 2 overseers, probably is the main thing. But yeah, there's no counter to it. So you're just going to take your time and kill it, I guess. And then I guess let it drop in between. I don't even remember, honestly. I don't think it's even a mechanic. Yeah, it just drops automatically now. So I think at one point it was set up to be more of a pain, but okay, so exact same pull again, all right? Literally the same mobs. This time we're going to line of sight around the frontal corner. And now here is when I would like to use the first jar. Basically, as this mob dies, as one of the mob dies, use the jar. As it dies, then we'll get the buff, and we're line of sighting, okay? But again, if you're ranged, you can just be really far back. I mean, there's a couple options, but I don't know. Like talking to a guy who plays a demon hunter, he was like, I don't even think about line of sighting because it's literally just one fell rush and it's broken. It's like, okay, sure. I mean, obviously line of sighting is probably still better, but up to you guys how you want to handle that mechanic. But yeah, same deal. Just keep interrupting. Now we don't open the jar here. I presume. I'm not really sure why. I guess because people are not used to it. But so no, listen. At this point, you can get any count you want. You can do anything you want in this route. It's actually completely freeform. It doesn't matter. Okay. The goal is, though, to have 75% count before you go down. That's it. So there's like 4 or 5 different packs that are decent packs that you can pull along the way. And you can pull any combo of them. It doesn't matter. You're going to see we go way over count in this dungeon too. Tons of deaths, way over count, make every possible mistake we can make, but we don't have one catastrophic wipe. And that's it. You just don't wipe. If everybody doesn't fail at once, this is a joke, an absolute easy upgrade. Okay, I'm promising you. I'm promising you this. If you find this to be untrue, tell me, and I will tell you. I will try to help you. But I do not see how anybody could complete this dungeon without a catastrophe and not upgrade it, because I have done some absurd things in this dungeon, and we always upgrade this key. But anyway, it's same pack, literally same pack, and I pull it here again because the jar is supposed to be open and we should now have 6 stacks. So ideally, the previous pack, as it dies, you open the jar. You have plenty of time to get this pack here. I might also pull that gargoyle. A lot of times I would pull that patrol because I said we just need count, right? I failed the line of sight there. We just need count. It doesn't matter where we get it from, whatever's convenient. Sometimes that gargoyle blocks your path. Sometimes you have to wait for him. Just take him. Just kill him. I mean, it's whatever. If it's not bolstering, I'm pulling that guy because the jar should be open. We should be getting the extra buff from him. That's great, right? But it's bolstering. We're not doing it. The jar's not even open. You see him? You see him right there? Chamber tunnel. He pats from up here to here. There's tons of count here too. I mean, I've never been down there. I don't even know what's down there. Looks like a mist dancer. So maybe you really want to see that mob type again. But there's also this room here. A lot of people are going to pull this. I just don't. I mean, I never did it. I don't feel like it's needed. Again, there's plenty of count along the way. And there's okay, so a big decision. This is a big decision that you're about to make. This pack is not very complicated, but there's a lot of weird things going on it. A lot of knockbacks. The dude heals some of the mobs. It's a weird pack. It's not your average pack. He's standing right next to Varuth. Blizzard is begging you to pull them together, but I am going to tell them no every time, and I'm going to show you why. This pack is actually more dangerous than you think, just because of how awkward it is. So he's going to do that sweeping slash. If you get hit by that, you're going to get knocked back. And it's oftentimes, because everybody's in this small area, going to hit multiple people, okay? So it's not a good thing to get hit by, but what it does is it makes the rest of the things a little awkward. And I think that would be enough of a reason to not pull Varuth. Because now you have to spread out from sweeping slash. People are going to get feared. People might run into each other with that bleed, okay? So I think that'll... So look at the rogue gets hit by that, right? We're not doing anything but dodging that, and he gets hit by it. So I think this pack is awkward enough to not consider pulling Varuth. Which is funny, because I just pulled a pack that we got 7 deaths to with a single mob, and Oros, who's the easiest one, right? So I don't know. It's a weird choice, but I feel like this is the right choice. And then he like empowers the dude with the shovel, and the dude, I mean, he has a shovel. It's a 2-handed weapon. You could use 2 hands on the shovel. He doesn't. He chooses not to use it. I don't know. Very confusing. But anyway, the other thing is he's going to do this massive tank mechanic. It's going to knock you back as well. Same deal we talked about on first boss. Try to use either the CD right before, like Death Strike right before. Motivational Clubbing is going to buff this mob. It's also going to like heal it, I think. I'm not exactly sure because I've seen the health go up. I think if it doesn't, the first time it gets the buff, it gains health. So anyway, that's it. He's the janitor. They call him the janitor. Head custodian. But Bludgeoning Bash is the knockback. Does a lot of damage, okay? Okay, Varuth, my man, my main man. Let me get that buff from you, buddy. I am the Stygian King now. So I'm already thinking about aggroing packs into this, because like this was not great fighting this dude alone, but I just think the pack prior to him is just no-go. Like you just can't risk it. It's set up to fail. Like they did it on purpose. They want you to take that gamble. And obviously a really good group is going to gamble and win there every time, but I feel like all it takes is the wrong person to get hit by the wrong thing there, and that could be actually a wipe, right? So I'm noticing that guy's assassination. That's a rare thing, but Okay, anyway, so yeah, not much going on here. Just figure it out. Do whatever you want here. I would say probably just take him solo. Not a big deal. Now, the next decision is going to be made immediately, and it is again bolstering, so it's going to impact this. But Stygian King Barbs, time to do good damage. So here I would always pull 2 outside of bolstering. All right, now there's a pack kind of right up here-ish that is very, very easy, especially if you're Blood Decay. You grip the one mob in, it trickles in, kill it all together. But this actually has one of the most dangerous mobs in this area, or probably in the whole dungeon, Depths Warden, okay? Another tank buster on this one. It's going to be a very dangerous tank mechanic. And then also a chain that if it gets off, it's a cast. If that casts a crushing strike, that's the tank mechanic. Let's see. Hit me pretty hard. That was a lot of damage. And then there's that barb shackle. I think I missed it, but whatever it's called. Something shackle, I guess. Just interrupt that. If anybody doesn't interrupt that, it's going to go on a damage dealer and it's going to do a ton of damage. So here I'm looking at Sogadon. Now, we looked at this a little bit yeah, barb shackle, there it is. We looked at this in the route video. They moved Sogadon, okay? He's no longer where he used to be. I told you about how you aggro Sogadon. He used to be right under us. You could easily jump and aggro him and you'd teleport up. They were like, hey, oh, we're trying to help you guys. We see you guys are not able to kill the third boss very easily, so we'll move the dude for you. That's literally what the patch notes said. They're like, oh, we'll move the 4th guy for you so it's easier to get him before the 3rd boss. And people were probably like, I like that. But now you realize why they do it, because now you can't aggro him, okay? So, yeah, I don't think there's any actual way to get him. And even if there was, it's probably just not worth it at this point. It was a slam dunk before, but they changed that, so. Okay. So, yeah, just keep interrupting. Crushing strike, big damage, no problem. Just death strike. And then that fire is coming from the scribes. So these scribes are actually a little bit more dangerous than they look. They do some mechanics, but realistically, you're not really ever going to worry about them. I kind of don't ever fight them alone. Like, they're never dangerous enough that I fight them alone. So you're kind of just dodging their mechanics. There's explosive vellum. There's not really much to talk about there. Just don't die to it. But it's usually the mobs that they are with that's dangerous. So like here, so this is another mob we would have aggroed. So I'm now trying to combine this pack. Actually thinking like, okay, well, what can we get that won't bolster it? So there's just like a single vestige of doubt in here. It's like, all right, interesting decision making. This is actually going to screw us over completely. So explosive anger. You see this remnant of fury. This is a must kick. I think does way too much damage to let go off. He's going to shoot a little red bolt at the shaman, and it's going to it's actually a curse, I guess. Yeah, so it can be dispelled too, but that ability is pretty dangerous, so make sure you're getting that one kicked. That's it. It's the same thing. The scribe is always fodder. It just feels like that does nothing. It's not really a mechanic. But yeah, explosive anger. We'll get that kick right at the last second. Look at that. Good play there. And it's pretty much it. These mobs used to be way more dangerous. They used to drop a red puddle on the ground when they die or something like that. They don't do that anymore. So used to be bad and no longer bad. Okay, so again, you're looking for pull potential here. Again, there's a jar there, so you really probably do want to get some value out of that, especially because the boss is coming up. It would be really, really good. The problem is it's in a terrible spot, and all of these guys are casters. So we have this another scribe coming with 2, okay, those remnants of fury, vestige of horror, or doubt, whatever it is. This would be a great pack to bring into the jar, and I would love to do it, but I mean, it's just not. It's they're so far away, you know what I'm saying? So it's you got to make sure you have. If you don't have grips and stuff, these mobs are just not going to move into this jar. I really don't know what to suggest for other tanks. I actually don't have any idea because I don't know how you get these mobs here. But yeah, obviously, so the dude who's the vent there dies, so not good. But I think he dies. I'm trying to figure out how he dies. So he's just getting pelted by the throw research because we're out there. He also gets hit by the curse. Yeah. So he's gonna die of that curse. So that's that cast I'm telling you about. Make sure you're kicking that. That is actually that red it kind of looks like the pride is actually the same mob, just very small. That pride looking mob, you really need to interrupt that dude. He's the most dangerous mob in here. And it used to be even more dangerous. Like I said, when it died, it used to put a big red puddle in the ground, meaning it was like impossible to use the jar because then you'd kill him and then the jar would be covered in red stuff. So it would be like really, really, really difficult to actually use the jar. But those days are behind us. Not much going on here, but more deaths. So we're up to 9 deaths now, and things don't really get much easier from here on out. But okay, so Chamber Sentinel. So again, it's bolstering week. I'm not aggroing anything else. But this guy can appear at one of 3 locations. He will always be on your path to the boss, one way or the other. There's only 1 Chamber Sentinel on each side, but there will always be 1, okay? On this side, you pass 3 of them, so you will always see it. On the left side, ideally, you will see it early because it's a very easy count, very easy to combine into other mobs. But I don't see it very often. It's a 2 in 3 chance, so you do have to get a bit lucky. But you would think you would get lucky more than not, but I feel like I'm unlucky all the time. So same deal. Don't bolster Warden. Otherwise, we're combining, no problem. Warden, make sure you're paying attention. Crushing Strike, going to do a lot of damage. See, that did a lot of damage. That did like 50% of my health. Barb Shackle, we get that interrupt, saving another DPS. And there I'm like, oh, hey, Sogadon. Hey, I'm your biggest fan. I'm your biggest fan. You want to come up here? I could definitely aggro him, but it's just not worth it. He's going to probably grip somebody down there. But obviously, so we actually like completely squander the vampire, whatever, the Venthyr buff, so that's gone by now. I think ideally you'd probably get it and use it for the boss to some degree, but it's, yeah, you have to do it really well, and it's kind of complicated. So wouldn't worry about it too much. Just like I said, no mistakes. That's it. Doesn't matter. You don't have to use anything well. You don't need a Venthyr. You don't need a Rogue. You don't need any of this stuff. You're just going to take, you're going to make the right decision at the right time, and you upgrade this key 100% time. Wrong decision being made here is not releasing. If you die in this area of the dungeon and you don't release, you're a fool. It's literally like it's a 40-yard run. It's you roll once as a monk and you'd be here. This is a foolish thing that this guy's sitting here making us res. But whatever, that's DPS. Okay, so here we go. Tarvold. Formerly, I would say the hardest boss in any Mythic Plus ever, okay? Which is something because of Legion. But regardless, very, 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 very difficult encounter. I don't know what's changed. I think people just gotten better at it. No longer very difficult. This is usually a big part of why. Castigate does a ton of damage, okay? If you have a magic immunity or something that prevents you from being targeted, it doesn't go on you, okay? Now, actually, I don't know about that part. I don't know what Feign Death and Vanish do, okay? I don't actually know. It probably just puts it on someone else. I imagine that's what happens, actually. So maybe not good advice there. But regardless, if you have a magic immunity, it will not do anything to you. Okay, so you could go Bubble as Paladin, Ice Block as Mage, probably Turtle as Hunter. Okay, Rogue can do both. I've seen them get rid of all of them, so I assume all the different things they have work. And a little sneaky thing as Death Knight, but not as Death Knight tank because you won't ever get the mechanic. If you AMS it, it will stop as well. So it's a really good tip because this does a lot of damage, and healer is going to be heavily occupied by it. So he's also going to summon this fleeting manifestation. This is a bit of a trap mechanic. If you do not kill this thing fast, it's going to wipe you. Like literally, if you don't kill that thing, you will not kill the boss. It will kill you before you kill the boss, 100%. It has 148k health, so it's a relatively high amount of health for an ad in a boss fight. But you do need to target it, like 100%. Every single person switches to it, and it dies quick. Then it leaves a giant puddle on the ground, and you move. Don't stand in the puddle. Try to move like I did there as it's coming. Okay, so the real mechanic on this fight is the hallway, where you fight him. Famously, if you look back in the channel, the video is still there. Go look at it. It's hilarious. You were able to snap this boss down to the bottom floor. You were able to walk by this dude. The door was just open. You can go downstairs, and you could pull him down into the 3rd boss room. Fight him in that room. It's 10 times easier, right? That's hilarious. You should go watch that. It's absolutely hilarious. Anyway, they fixed that, obviously. So can't do that anymore. The room is a mechanic. Where you fight him is a mechanic. And the reason it's a mechanic is these beams. If the beams run you over, I think they do some damage. Yeah, they do like a slight amount of damage too, it looks like. But they put a bad curse on you, okay? And again, somebody's got to dispel that. So we have a shaman. He does it. Okay, he actually does it. So that's great. But most DPS are probably very unhappy about dispelling that. But there you go. You see Castigate, Paladin, Bubble. It's over. The mechanic is no longer doing anything. So that's really good. But yeah, this is actually way easier than it used to be. And I think the trick is just killing the ads. People are more apt to do this now. This dungeon on Tyrannical used to be scary. It used to be like, oh my god, bad boss after bad boss after bad boss. But yeah, as long as you're actually killing and targeting it, it should be easy. So this rogue doesn't seem to know how to play a rogue. I mean, he takes the whole thing, I think. So I don't know what he's doing. It's whatever. I've seen Sign actually literally never get hit by the mechanic. So maybe he'll comment down below on how to do it as a rogue. But as a tank, you're never going to get the mechanic anyway. So one tip I like to do is I give deaths or whatever it's called. I like to throw AMZ on the person. Like if I know exactly when I place my AMZ, it's going to be full value. I will do it. Otherwise you can save it for the ad, because the ad is actually constantly pulsing. See the shadow damage we're taking constantly, so that's going to add up. It's going to get really, really bad on Tyrannical. So but yeah, just the hard part is dodging the things coming through the room. And then look at this. So here's a major mistake, and Tyrannical, this is definitely a death. So we kill the ad, and then the rogue, because he doesn't know how to play his class or something, runs to the other side and does some rogue shit over there. And now he's trapped. Now he's blocked off, right? So obviously it's not a problem. His boss is dead, but he's stuck over there. So if he doesn't do friggin' ninja leap or whatever this ability is called, he is not going to get back over here. He's going to die. If you run through that puddle, you will die. It does insane damage. If you take more than one tick from that, you will die. Okay, so again, 75% count is the route we're doing. Not 78.5, 75. It's a big issue here because I pulled the dumb stuff I pulled early, and it really confused me. It made me very not happy with what I'm pulling, like not confident, I guess, and it causes some issues. So no problem, whatever. It doesn't matter. We don't wipe to it or anything, but again, it's not ideal to be going over count, right? You don't want to do that. So same mobs. We've been fighting these, but now there's a few new ones. Frenzied Ghouls. These are mobs that we actually could have had an opportunity to pull earlier in the dungeon, and I chose not to. And not really for any reason. These guys do Shadow Claws, which does shadow damage, but you know, AMS not a problem, but I don't know, maybe stun them. I don't really feel like they're very dangerous. I'm gonna tell you this. I should have flipped this, to be honest. I did this a couple days ago with a guild group. And typically they're not like great Mythic Plus players. Okay, but yeah, maybe they do a lot. I still don't understand what this is. They bloodlust or something like this. I'm not really sure when or why. All of a sudden they just bloodlust. Yeah, they just get way more powerful. And I'm already somewhat low, and that Shadow Claws kills me. Actually, just one-shots me, so. Okay, not good, but that's mostly bolstering, to be honest, so it's not really something you're going to have to worry about too often. I don't really understand what that mechanic is. I don't fight these mobs enough to know, but I guess maybe stun them when you see it happen, or maybe it's purgeable, enrage dispel. I don't know. Anyway, we pulled like 4 packs here last week or 2 weeks ago, actually, when it was fortified, and we didn't wipe. And I'm like, yo, if we can do that as a group of people who like aren't even serious about Mythic Plus, this like room is a joke. It's definitely the easiest trash. And you could pull it all. Like that's my point. Like you could do all 10% of the count you need in one pull if you wanted here. You know, sure, you can go pull individual packs on the way or individual mobs and get 75. And then the criticism I've heard here is like going left is not a good idea. Like you don't want to run and run back, and it's a lot of running. And I actually 100% agree. I mean, this was famous. This is my criticism about the Atal Dazar route in BFA. I don't think running the wrong direction is ever a good idea. But the mobs are just too free, and they're just standing here. They're just waiting for you to kill them. You know what I mean? Oh, and obviously we don't have too much success with them here, but it's like it doesn't. It's mostly bolstering. Like it's not an issue. So maybe this week we do something different, but these mobs are literally I can pull this whole hallway and it'll be fine. So I'm praying. I mean, look at this. We need less than 1%. I'm very upset about this. Where's my gargoyle? I just need the gargoyle. We're good. Of course, 1 out of 3. We lose. Now we got to pull some dumb pack. So this is like, you don't really need to, typically you wouldn't have gotten this far. Either that or you pull nothing and then you get this pack 100%, and then you're at 75 even. But I don't know. It's a little awkward. I explained it in my route video. Not really much going on here, to be honest. Just interrupt, and it's the same mobs we've already seen. So let's go ahead and move on to the bottom floor. So now at 75 or higher, 78.3, we're moving down. And this is now an interesting room because they added the tormented dude here. So when do you want to pull him? Obviously we want to pull him with some trash. I don't know, it's actually the first time I'm doing this dungeon as a tank with the change. So I'm thinking like, should we get him now? The problem is like you definitely are getting him before the boss. Like the boss is gonna force you to aggro him effectively. But when? I don't really know. Maybe the first pack, maybe the second pack. It doesn't really matter, I guess. Just whatever's convenient. Maybe with bolstering, you're thinking about things differently, but you definitely don't want to pull 3 mobs. Like, or you don't want to have 3 combat instances down here is my point. So right now we have two mobs standing here and then 1 mob aggroed in. So that's a pack of 3 that we made out of 2 different pulls. And then now we're going to get these 2 and pull them into Sogadon. So however you want to do it, just make sure you're in combat only twice. That's the easiest way to look at it. This is definitely not the fastest way to do it. I think we're like running around the front of the boss. This is just asking for trouble. But it doesn't end up causing any issues, I don't think. But yeah, I don't know. Just make sure you're only fighting packs twice. That's it. Just however you want to handle it. Oh, and also, if you haven't seen on Quaking Weeks, Sogadon could actually be extremely dangerous. If he pulls you in when the quack is happening and everybody quacks at the same time, you'll all die. There'll be feathers everywhere. Just make sure that you're spread out around him because he's always going to pull you in with respect to his center. So if you're spread around him, you will not hit each other. You will not all get quacked at the same time. I've had it where all 5 people do it at the exact same time and they just automatically get one shot. So but yeah, it's the same mobs, the oppressors. Just keep interrupting them. Again, Blood DK has a lot of ways to grip and everything, stun and everything, but it's really not that big of a deal. Like there's very, very little dangerous trash in this dungeon. This is another reason why this dungeon is so easy because there's just not really any danger in the trash. There's honestly no hard trash. There's like 2 or 3 packs and that's it. 2 or 3 pulls, not even packs, like packs that you're combining, and that's why they're difficult. Single mobs offer no real threat in here as fortified. So it's all bosses, even unfortified. This is still a boss dungeon. This is still take full single target because the only difficulty is going to be single targets. Dangerous single mobs. That's it. Bosses, these dudes are tormented mobs, and then individual trash mobs. And that's actually it. It's the only time you're ever going to struggle. And if you prevent those wipes, you will upgrade the key. Sogadon, thank you for the stone ward, buddy. Okay, so here we go. This is actually another very interesting tank boss. Probably the boss that is the most interesting to tank right now. One of the most interesting. Because the iron spikes. Okay, so this is actually very similar to King Dazar. Very similar fights in a lot of Legion Mythic Pluses too. We have this tank mechanic that does a massive amount of damage. And on Tyrannical, if you don't use anything, you will likely die. I mean, maybe on a lower key, but yeah, if I don't use anything at all during the iron spikes, I will die. So the way we handled it in King Dazar, and I wasn't very good at this, but basically you just save up 2 death strikes, you use 1 early and 1 late, and then you're good. This will be the same play here. If you're not a tank that has death strike, maybe try that class out. It's pretty fun, but no, I don't know. Just use a defensive. You're probably good. I mean, warrior probably can just raise their shield or whatever the hell they do, and you'll probably be all right. But just make sure that you're using something every time. It's very, it's going to do a lot of damage. This is the actual mechanic, though. This is where people are going to die. And if for somehow you don't know this, you gather the orbs, the yellow circles, you see these things? They put a reduction on you so you take less damage from this specific mechanic. That's it. If you don't get them, you don't reduce the damage of this mechanic, but it doesn't do anything else on the fight. So I'm never going to get these because I don't care about this mechanic. And one of the main reasons I don't care about it is because its main danger is not the damage it does up front, but the damage it does afterwards via a dot, and I could AMS that dot. So every other Rite of Supremacy, I AMS and I take no damage. Like literally, I don't have the dot. As you see, 4 people with the dot. I didn't take damage from the upfront either. Very, 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 very easy fight for Blood DK, honestly. Probably the easiest possible dangerous fight. Like if it's hard for tanks, because now typically I could use Rune Tap and then 1 Death Strike, and I took no damage from that mechanic. I just reduced 100% of the damage it dealt to me. Easy, easy, easy fight for Blood DK. On Fortified, it's easy to talk trash against, but it's not that bad. All right, so again, now maybe here, since I don't have AMS, I might take 1. But the problem is you don't want to take 1 on somebody else. So AMZ, another great mechanic because it's all magic. So you see, really nice. AMZ is going to help out. You could continue to stand in it and reduce the damage afterwards. So definitely use AMZ. But yeah, and just dodge the yellow swirls. It's actually harder than it looks. I get hit by it relatively often. They're very fast, okay? They put a holy damage multiplier on you, so you don't want to get hit by that. But as you see, there was relatively ill prepared for that one, and I almost, it was almost dangerous. So interesting. But you got so many CDs now as Blood DK, it really should be easy. Just use one for each, and one Death Strike, and you're good. And now again, AMS, easy mode. So Paladin could immune, Rogue could immune. Rogues obviously have multiple ways to do it. Mage could do, Hunter can do. Probably like Monk has big CDs enough to not. But like so the problem is, let's put it this way: if you get 5 stacks of this, you take like no damage from the mechanic. So ideally, everybody would get 5 stacks of that, right? But there's not enough orbs for that. So the reason I take none is not because I'm like trying to act like I'm a badass or something like that, and I don't care about the mechanic. It's so other people could take them instead. So there's now, if everybody takes every orb, there's now 20% more orbs, right? You know what I'm saying? So that's 20% less damage or whatever you would say about that. So that's just something that you should consider doing always as a tank. Like you should never need those to survive it. So don't make the DPS have to fight over the mechanic with you. Anyway, now that you have this shield, it's actually a massive damage reduction. You can use this on any pack that you like. And the rest of this dungeon should be extremely easy. These are the same mobs we've been fighting, oppressors and hunt masters. Just make sure you dodge the trap unless you plan on soaking it for the group. Otherwise, interrupt. That's it. And these do a lot of damage. This is actually a pretty dangerous pull. But yeah, this shield will reduce damage for everybody who's in it, including the group. So make sure you're using it when you're sure you have the availability to do it only. I'm going to explain what that means in a second. Okay, so here we go. We're skipping this. This is probably one of the most ridiculous packs in any dungeon. It's the 3 hardest mobs in the dungeon, all just standing here. The Mist Dancer is probably the easiest mob in there, but the Overseer makes everything slower, and the Sentinel is going to be constant movement, and then the Overseer is also going to do the chains. So I think this is just a slam dunk pack to skip. It's really not that dangerous either. If you really want to pull it, you can. But obviously, when you're at 88% count here, we're over count, so we're definitely not pulling it. Okay, so we're going to hug the left. Now, one thing I will say, you do need to hug the left. If you're running with Shroud, you need to not run through this Overseer. It seems to have way better perception than most mobs do. If you do not distract this pack and you run through anytime like even remotely close to the mob, you will aggro it, okay? So pay attention to that. Do not run through the mobs when you're shrouding. You need to be very cautious. Actually saw a warrior leap over the mobs too. I don't know how the hell he did it, but he started back in front of the pack and he leaped to here and he did not aggro the pack. It's out there. I should probably have clipped it, but it's like a 1 second thing. So anyway, okay, so now we're going to go into a very, 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 very aggressive pull. And this is probably the most aggressive pull I'm going to do in the whole dungeon. At this point, though, I'm thinking about the timer. I'm like, yo, we don't upgrade this key. This has to be perfect. So those cadets, okay? They are not necessarily that dangerous. They have very little health, as you see. Everything in this gauntlet has very little health. But the problem is they buff each other. Okay, you see that? It looks like Repentance, 4 stacks. Some of them have 2 stacks, some have 3. That's them buffing each other. The closer they are, obviously some of them aren't very close to each other. But when you have all of them together, they're going to have a lot of stacks. It's going to do a lot of damage. But they have so little health that I think it is your responsibility as a tank to find a way through this. Because this is going to speed up this gauntlet so severely. What you're going to do here is actually skip a Kaal phase by doing these 2 packs at once. And you can do this for the rest of the gauntlet if you want. If you want to pull every pack in the gauntlet at once and kill it all together, then you skip all the Kaal phases because now she's the only actual thing and she's not running. So what I mean by that is when she runs, you can't damage her, right? So when there's nothing for her to run to, you just keep fighting her. You just keep going. You know what I mean? It saves so much time. So this seems to me like an absolutely mad play at this point, but absolutely needed. And the bigger issue is threat, unfortunately. So I'm going to do it because I have everything up. I have literally everything up. But there's also the Dark Bolts being cast. There's also the Gargans, the dogs running in. And it's a very, very, very dangerous pull. But you're just going to take a ton of damage from these mobs. Just be aware of that. A good chunk of it's going to be magic. So good thing to AMS. You can also use AMZ here. But as you see, things die very quick. We have very, very good AoE DPS. And just I mean, look, I just have to admire this real quick. There's no way. I mean, tell me how they didn't buff the Death Strike coefficient. Look at this. Look at that Death Strike. That is just giant. I mean, it's really crazy how good Blood DK is feeling right now. But anyway, when the Gloom Squall cast happens, you use the shield. Everybody stands in the shield. You won't get knocked back, and you'll take way less damage from the mechanic. But it still does shadow damage. So again, AMZ, throw that out to reduce it. A little bit of a problem with Quack, though. Now, I'm going to tell you, it deserves to be said. Sai made a huge play the other day, and this is something that people should learn from, okay? I died. It was because of necrotic, I think, actually. I died. The shield on the ground when the tank dies. Whoever picks up the shield, doesn't have to be the tank. Anybody can pick up the shield. Should be the tank, though, because he could use it for defense as well. The thing is, Kaal's mechanic is going to line up with the CD of the shield every time. So you see how we just run through now? Like she's going to meet us here, basically, is what I mean. So anyway, every time the shield's up, it's very likely she's going to do the mechanic, as long as she's not running like that. So we could actually have gotten a free use of it. You could use it at the very beginning of fighting Kaal when she has 0 energy, and it will be back up again before you need it. But it's close. It's really close. Like, it's going to be at the last second. And I think that alone is bad, because then people aren't going to know where to run. I like to put it down well beforehand, meaning I won't ever do that. Even though I should, I just don't think it's worth it, because I don't want to ever confuse anyone into a death. If I die, let that be my fault, but I don't want anybody else to get confused into accidental deaths. That's when you're pugging as a tank. This is the mechanic. You don't let other people get confused into deaths. Your responsibility is making their jobs as easy as possible. And if you do that, you will have success all the time. That is the key to the success I have. Moderate as it is, the success I have is because I'm constantly thinking about them and how they cannot make a mistake by me giving them the affordability for that. And this Gauntlet is no better. There's no better place for it. Also, in that diatribe, we missed the very important pull there. So yeah, you can combine both of these pulls. You see there's a pull here and a pull here. You can get them all together. Gore fiends them. More casters here, so just keep interrupting. And there's this jar here. So this is like free 10 stacks. You definitely want to keep refreshing this and getting as many stacks as possible before you leave. And then 2 minutes of massive damage buff. That's it. So that's it. That's the whole Gauntlet. There's one bad pull coming up. Let's talk about this pack, because this pack is actually really dangerous. So at this point, again, timer is looking really tight. I would normally not do this, but I am going to combine it into the Chamber Sentinel pack. Now, we talked about this very, very briefly at the beginning of the dungeon, but this pack is actually extremely difficult because of this mechanic here. Animate Weapon. They do a lot of damage with this, okay? These things spawn, and they do hit you very hard. So you can stun that cast, and they won't do it. They might try to do it again later, but if you stun it during the cast, it's not going to happen for a long time. So if you can get 2 people to stun this cast, this pack turns like 50%. It's less dangerous, okay? Problem is getting people to do it. Very unlikely, but yeah, you should be able to do one regardless yourself. So that's pretty much it. Otherwise, it's the same mob. Craggy Fracture. One more death for the monk. Might as well. Let's rock. 14 deaths, guys. And we upgrade this. Spoiler alert. Sorry if anybody was trying to keep score at home. But look at the death strike. Come on, this class. I don't even have bone shields. I don't even need it. Just give me those big. I mean, I have 100k health, guys. Do you understand that? That death strike just heals for like 60,000. More like maybe 80,000 at times. And then put the bone shield on, or the blood shield on afterwards. Come on, man. It's so powerful, right? I don't know what's going on, man. Anyway, we have this one last pack here. One tip I will give you is that Huntmaster there really likes to stay in this room. This wall is not actually line of sighting anything for some reason. It can attack you through there. So I always try to grip this one, because this is the far one. You do have to run into the room a little bit. So just keep that in mind. But again, more traps. Really good time to use the shield, just in case anybody pulls threat, that they won't die to threat. And then just definitely soak the traps here. I mean, there's nothing left in this dungeon. It's basically over. The last boss is actually pretty dangerous, but Realistically, okay, we probably shouldn't have pulled this pack, honestly. We're way over count. Like, legitimately, if we fail to upgrade this key, it's probably, I'm going to have to put it squarely on my shoulders. We should have just shrouded this pack. But maybe it's not up, actually. It's probably not even up. Anyway, that's it. Okay, so here we go. General Kaal, the boss from the raid, but in the 5-man first, you only have to get her to 50% health. She starts at 70, so it's like a good couple million only. It's nothing special, but looks a little daunting when you come up on a 10 million boss. Okay, so this fight is actually insanely easy now, and I'm going to tell you why. Because healers can take a anima power that makes you give movement speed to everyone, okay? And I'm going to tell you why that's important. Because the mechanic is dodgeable, she charges to your location, and if you're not at that location when she gets there, you don't get the bleed, which is like the whole fight. Like, literally, that's the mechanic on the encounter. So as the healer taking that, you obviously should never get hit. Now, if you're a melee DPS, it's going to be a little bit harder, but the way you do it is you run out as far as possible, and then what I do, I just run side to side. I mean, probably not ideal, probably better ways to do it, but I just run side to side and she doesn't ever hit me. It's like very, very unlikely. As long as the angles are right, then she won't ever hit me. So yeah, it doesn't happen here. Paladin gets hit, and then somehow 2 melee get hit. I did not actually know that worked that way, but yeah, I guess if you are on top of another person. So now we have 3 people with those bleeds, and that is actually legitimately the only danger on this fight. It does a lot of damage, but that's basically all there is. So this mechanic is very simple. As you see, as it coalesces, the bottom part kind of shows up. Once you see that, that's how you know that's the one you want to pay attention to. Stand right on the edge. It's just going to make the room into 3. So stand right on the edge, and then as soon as it's clear, you move into it, and then the rest are nothing. They don't do anything. That's how you do that mechanic. Very, very easy. Always, as a tank, always tank the boss near one of them so people don't get baited. Now that monk has 2 stacks. Be a very good idea for him to either take a bop or maybe vial that off, but actually we're going to be good. Now here's an interesting concept. Quacking plus stacking. But it's fine, I guess. I don't think anybody's going to die. And to be honest, the shield is going to reduce the damage of the quack, so probably not that big of a deal, but just something to keep in mind. Same mechanic, Gloom Squall. Throw AMZ down, not a bad idea. Any type of damage reduction as well will help. And that's it. That is the entire mechanic in the entire fight. So just dodge that. Make sure as tank, you're kind of keeping it in the middle so people could dodge the other thing easier. Maybe kind of keep it to the side, whatever's easier for people maybe. But I don't know. It's very easy. I don't know if we have the speed buff here. I don't feel like I do. So if you're a healer doing this dungeon, always take the speed buff. I think that's from Oros, Coldheart. Can't remember, but yeah, this is a fight that having a speed buff on is actually insane. So, but otherwise, it doesn't matter. As long as you're in the shield removes the bleed. So shield also going to remove things like necrotic. Should have talked about that in the Gauntlet. You can use the shield to remove necrotic. You know, unfortunately, you're obviously going to have to use the shield for the boss's mechanic, but you can use it for other things too. If somehow you have the affordability. Death Knight can also just Death's Advance. If for some reason, I actually do it here. Actually, I forgot about this. If for some reason you ever can't stack in the buff or you don't get there, you could Death's Advance and you are fine. The damage that the mob, that the mechanic does is actually not that high. It's mostly the knockback. If you get knocked back at any point on this platform and you don't have a way to save yourself, you will get knocked off. It's way too small. So watch this. Quack at the same time. Guess what? I'm out. I'm not going to quack that group. Well, I actually am because I'm an idiot. I moved back into the group and hit 2 players. But they're shit DPS. I'm just kidding. Okay, so that's it. That's the fight, guys. That's the whole fight. Literally, that's it. Very, very easy fight. Obviously, always going to have blowless here. Always going to have big CDs here. Upgraded key with, well, hold on a second. How many deaths do we have? 14 deaths. So tell me to my face that you've struggled with this key and I will find a way to help you. This should be the easiest key. Like, this should be an exercise in how to take keys, how to approach keys right, all right? You don't need to pull, like, this isn't Plaguefall. You don't need to be snapping Plague Boars onto the 4th boss and stuff. You just pull in a straight line, make small combinations where it's obvious, use the jars well if you have them. Don't make a big mistake. Don't make a big mistake. That's the big thing. Avoid the big mistakes. So thank you for watching. Hope this helps. Let me know if it did, and we will see you guys in the next one. Playlist is going to be down below.